Welcome. Today on the English calendar is 6/13, which is definitely not a coincidence. We have 613 mitzvahs in the Torah, plus the 7 rabbinic. And today we'll finish, with God's help, we'll finish the 4th chapter of Masechta Shabbos of Yakov, which we started yesterday, so it's not that long. We discussed the idea of why we have, or how we know specifically that it's 40 malachos, that there's 40 prohibitions, tasks that you're not allowed to do on Shabbos, as the main ones. There are a lot of derivatives. And we said, interestingly, that there are 40 times minus 1, 39, that you have in the Torah, the word malacha, or meleches, or melachtoi, work, his work, and so on. And there's a question about 2 of them, do they count or not? Regarding Yosef HaTzadik going into the house to do his work, and there's a debate what it means by work. And in regards to the Jewish people's contributions to the Mishkan to build the tabernacle, it also says the work was enough. Which doesn't mean work, it means the giving. So there's a debate, should we consider, or a question, should we consider one of those, and if so, which one, of the word malacha, meleches, or melachtoi, work. Should we use that one as part of the count? Okay. In the end, the Gemara says, Teku, when Mashiach will come, Elijah the prophet is going to give us the answer. We'll figure, he'll let us know. There's different questions throughout the Talmud that they're not resolved, and it says, Mashiach will come and it'll be resolved. And here we are, the next section, the next story. Ameimar Umar Zutra v'Rav Ashi. The 3 sages, Ameimar, Mar Zutra, and Rav Ashi, were sitting and having a meal together on Shabbos. Aisu the Kamei Badra, or Barda. They brought to them something called Barda. It's a type of liquid made out of 3 different grasses or herbs. It's interesting that when the commentators talk about it, the way that they explain it, and Rashi brings it, one of them is from a type of grass called aloe, which maybe it's like aloe vera. A third of it is made out of a hadas, which we use on sukkahs, which is a myrtle. And the third is from a type of grass that we call sigli. And the sigli flower plant has 3 leaves to it. So let's just say it's a complex or a sophisticated type of liquid, maybe even like an ointment that they brought before them, or a nice soap to wash their hands after the meal. Ameimar and Rav Ashi mishayedayu. Ameimar and Rav Ashi, they both used it and they washed their hands. Mar Zutra, however, refused. Lo moshu yodei. He didn't do it. Now, this is something which is not unique to Shabbos. He didn't do it, Rashi tells us, because there's a concern. We have a mitzvah in the Torah.
Who is Rashi?
Rashi is one of the foremost commentators on the Talmud. Shlomo ben Yitzchak. And we have a mitzvah in the Torah that a man cannot dress like a woman. Cross-dressing is, for a man to a woman, is forbidden. Included in that prohibition are other things that are behaviors of women that a man should not do. So, certain types of perfumes, or things like that would sometimes in certain societies would go under that category. And to clarify, you have situations or certain eras or societies that it's acceptable. Like back in the day, wearing a ring or a bracelet or a necklace or something only women did. Today, there is also a man necklace. It wouldn't be transgressing any prohibition of dressing like a woman just because you're wearing a necklace. So it depends, different eras, different things. So there was a time, and according to some opinions, that time maybe still continues, when perfume was something which women did. And for a man to do it would be considered not typical. So the first 2 sages, they washed their hands with it.
With what?
With this badra liquid, some kind of ointment or lotion or something after they ate. But
So it's good smelling?
probably, yeah. It was a myrtle, which smells really pleasant, and aloe, which is probably very smooth, and sigli, yeah. So Ameimar and Rav Ashi used it, they did not. So they told him, do you not hold of the great sage Bar Sheshes who says that it's allowed? Bar Sheisha said it's perfectly fine. Amar Lei, Rav Mordechai Bar Minei Demar, Da'afilu B'chol Nami Le Sfira Le. Says 1 second. It's got nothing to do with you telling me Rav Sheisha said it's fine, but let me tell you that there's another sage that says that even during the week it's a problem. Forget Shabbos. The Sever Leki Haitana. He holds according to this teaching, the Tanya that we learned, a person is allowed to take with a special type of scrub, which again was not something that men in those days did. They weren't so particular about the smoothness of their skin. If a person has certain types of remnants of maybe dirt or scabs from some type of wound, he's allowed to scrape it off. Don't scrape it, it'll leave a mark. Scraping it off because it's giving him tsar, it's giving him pain. That Brisa says if you're doing it because you're in pain and you have to scrape something off, then it's okay. But if you're doing it because you just want to make yourself pretty, that would be considered, again, in those societies, in those times, that type of behavior would be considered to be inappropriate for a man. Who does this person hold like? Who do they hold like? Again, Amema and Rav Ashi are doing it. They don't hold to this problem. It's also an issue for them. Svarua ki hadetanya, they hold according to this brisa, which says Rechetz Adam Panav Yadav Raglav B'chol Yom B'shvil Kveit Kaineu. They have a different opinion. They say no, you are allowed to wash your face every single day, your hands and your feet, even though maybe it's considered to be beautifying. And why are you doing that? It's an honor for Hashem. Out of respect to your Creator, you're beautifying yourself before you daven and before you serve Hashem, which we do every single day. So washing yourself well, on the contrary, it's not a problem. It's an honor, it's a glory for Hashem to be clean. It's actually brought to the halacha, Jewish law, that a person who wakes up in the morning, he should wash his face before he makes the morning blessings. You say the Maidani by your bed, that you say right away, even before your feet get off the bed. You wash Negavasar, you acknowledge, you praise Hashem that you're alive. But after that, you go and you wash up. Because out of respect to Hashem, you wash your face. So therefore, they said it's not a problem. You want to daven, you want to praise Hashem, you want to serve Hashem, you got to wash yourself. That everything was created for Hashem, and therefore this is something which would be allowed. Okay. Before we go on to the next piece, any questions? Okay.
It's the mysticism, Jewish mysticism, no?
This is from Talmud. Stories.
What's the difference between Torah and Talmud? It's the same thing, no?
Yes. Well, sometimes Torah refers to the Bible element, the written Torah. Talmud is more of the oral Torah. Amar Rabbi. Rafuna said another teaching name of Rabbi. Osir lahatmin es hatzeinin. On Shabbos, one is not allowed to cover, to hide, to wrap up cold. Now, normally, what this means is it's a cold food. Let me give you a little background. On Shabbos, food? Let's say on Shabbos you have a cold piece of chicken. Okay. Now, there's certain ways that if you wrap it, you could bring it to some level of heat. Okay. Normally, that would be maybe while it's already hot, and you want to keep it hot, so you're wrapping it up. In some cases, there's a way to wrap it that it actually adds more heat because the steam is almost heating itself up. Different ways of doing it. This context, that this is talking about on Shabbos itself. You have something that's cold, and we're saying you're not allowed to wrap it up. Now, why would a person want to wrap it up? It's cold. Because he doesn't want it to get ruined from the sun. Let's say it's 100 degrees outside, and you have a hard-boiled egg or something else that you're afraid is going to go bad, and it's Shabbos. You're not cooking; it's cooked already. It's cold. You want to wrap it so it shouldn't get ruined from the sun. For example, the halacha is, the Rafuna said, you're not allowed to do that. Why? It's a decree. We're concerned that if you're going to be allowed to wrap up cold for other reasons, people are going to say wrapping is allowed, and it will lead a person to wrap something that's hot on Shabbos, which is a form of cooking, and it will, over time, people will start doing the wrong thing. Mm-hmm. So therefore, don't wrap food. Again, this is a method of preserving or keeping the heat. Don't do it even if something is cold. The Gemara says, 1 second, this is a contradiction. You're telling me that Rav Huna said in the name of Rabbi that it's prohibited. We learned that Rabbi Hitri lahatmin es hatzeinin. Rabbi said it's okay to do it. So you have a contradiction, not from one Mishnah to the other, from the very same sage. Rabbi was Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, was the author of the Mishnah, great sage. He said, really leader of the Jewish people at the time, he said in one place you're not allowed to, at least according to your quote. And now he's saying, which is obviously legitimate, and now we have a different source that says that it's okay. How do you reconcile it? When it says like kasha, it's not a contradiction. This is before he heard from Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yesi, before he heard the following teaching from Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yesi, he said it's prohibited. But then he heard a teaching and he said it actually is permitted. Here's what happened.
What does sage mean?
Mudretz in Russian, scholar. The Rabbi Amar, the Yasir Rabbi Amar, as Rabbi said, Rabbi was sitting and he said the following: Osur lahatmenes atzeinin. Rabbi was once teaching. This is the Rabbi that we're quoting, that there's a contradiction if you're allowed to or not. And he said, again, this law, you're not allowed to wrap up the cold food. Amar lefan Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yesi. So Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yesi, was sitting there and he said, well, one second. My father, Rabbi Yesi, he said it's okay to do that if it's cold. Hot, everyone agrees you're not allowed to do it. If it's cold, it's fine. So why are you saying it's prohibited? It's allowed. You're allowed to. Omar, so Rebbe, again, was the leader, and he was the author of the Mishnah, and he was the authority. He said, if Zakim, which Rabbi Yesi said that it's allowed, I retract what I said that it's prohibited. I can't say it's prohibited, and I respect it, and we're going to say it's allowed. Again, you can't change a law, but he was saying that there seems to be a decree that we should say it's prohibited because a person may end up doing it in a case that it's actually prohibited, meaning when it's hot. So it's a pretty fascinating thing. He's saying a teaching, and someone there says that his father said it's okay, so he changes. Amar Rav Papa, so Rav Papa said, let's see how much they cherish, how much they love, how much they care one for another. Rabbi Yesi and Rebbe. Rebbe could have said, I stick to what I said. But out of respect, out of love to what Rabbi Yesi was just quoted, he said it. Why? Where do you see this? Either Rabbi Yesi Kayam, because if Rabbi Yesi was alive, if Rabbi Yesi was alive, he already had passed away, but if he was alive, he would be sitting there, bent over, to listen to the teachings of Rebbe. He's the author of the Mishnah, the Yehuda Nasi. But Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yesi Malam became Avesav Haba, because Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yesi was actually succeeding his father's position. The Chafov Yeshiv Fnei Rebbe, and he was actually sitting there, bent over out of respect and humility in front of Rebbe. The Ka'amar, and he said, unless Karhira Zaken, he could have said, listen, he's my student. At least he's sitting in front of me like a student. But he didn't. Out of respect to him and this great sage, he cherished him so much that if he said something, he accepted it as authority. A lot of lessons to be learned there. This is one of the things you find about Rabbi Akiva's students. Rabbi Akiva lost 24,000 students. Right?
Akiva was the main Rebbe. What year?
What year? I don't remember what year it was. What, 300 years ago, probably?
300 years ago.
Not 23, 23. Or less. Not less? I don't know. Just before the Churban. 2100? Once you go past 1800, I think
it doesn't matter.
It matters, but
it matters in history.
But here's what happened. So he had 24,000 students. They all passed away. What did he do after they passed away? He didn't give up. He didn't say forget it. He didn't say he failed. He went and he started again. He had 5 students.
What do you mean right? They passed away?
There was a plague. He had 24,000. They all died. And then he started again with 5 students. These 5 students, we know their names, and we know what their teachings, and they had impact on Jewish studies forever, okay, on Torah. The first 24,000, we don't know their names, not even one of them. We don't know their teachings. Why? Because they, again, on their level, but they weren't known for respecting one another. They were very strong in their opinions, and they wanted the other person to agree with them for the right reasons. They intended well. They wanted the other person not to make a mistake. But the 5 students that came afterwards, of Rabbi Akiva, they were exceptional in their love for one another and their respect for one another. And therefore, their Torah was Kayam. It continued. It lasted. You know, the names, you know, they are. It had an impact. And the first 24,000, so many of them, unfortunately, is not didn't last. At least not in the way that we know who they are and what they said. And here you see that Rebbe retracted what he said when he was told in the name of a sage that came before him, who that sage would have sat in front of him with humility and accepted every word he said. He accepted it and said, it's going to be mutter. Okay. On the same topic, the Gemara tells us, Amar le Rav Nachman Daru Avde. Rav Nachman told his servant, his slave, Daru. He said, who was not Jewish, he told him, Atmin li tseinin, take cold, something cold, and wrap it up for me. V'aisi li maya da'achem kapila ramah. Sorry, it could be he was Jewish. But he told, and then he said, bring me water that kapila ramah, who was not Jewish, and we know that there's a prohibition that part of kosher is that a Shabbos keeping, kosher keeping person needs to be involved in the cooking, like the fire, or be involved in the cooking. And he said, bring me the water that Kapila Ramah cooked. Now, Kapila Ramah was not Jewish. He definitely didn't keep Shabbos or kosher. And yet he's ready to have, it's not Bishul Yisrael. Right? He's ready to have that water. Shama Rabbi Ami Ikpa. Rabbi Ami heard about this, and he was disappointed. He says, not okay. Why are you doing this? Amar Rabbi Yosef said, why not? My time Ikpet. Ki Rav Vasei Avad. He did it according to Rav Vasei. Now the meaning, the explanation of that is he did it according to his teachers. So the halacha is that water that's cooked, it doesn't have to be Bishul Yisrael. The rule is that what has to be cooked by someone who keeps Shabbos and kosher, that's a food that you can't eat raw. A food that you could eat raw, let's say you decided to cook an apple. Because you could eat an apple raw, the cooking it doesn't have to be done by someone that keeps Shabbos. I'm avoiding using the term, typical term of Risha. But the point is,
again, you cannot.
If a food that you could eat raw, doesn't matter who cooked it. If it's a food that you can't eat raw, so water you could have raw, right?
Yeah.
We drink water all the time that's raw.
Yeah.
So therefore,
doesn't matter who
fine,
boils it.
Correct. Chada kirav, chada kishmol. He did it according to his teachers. Nothing wrong. He did it according to Shmuel, because Shmuel said you're allowed to wrap the tzeinin. We just went through this. You're allowed to cover cold food on Shabbos, and we're not worried, which is actually what Rabbi said in the end. We're not worried that maybe it's going to lead to someone wrapping up hot. And also according to Rav, anything that you could eat raw, we're not worried about Bishul Nachri. If you could eat it in the raw state, it doesn't matter who cooked it, because it's not that required to cook. It makes it better. It's more tasty. It's different texture and so on. So why is he upset? Why was Rabbi Ami upset on Rav Nachman, who asked his servant, go wrap the cold thing, and he said, go bring the water that Aramah cooked? Why was he upset?
So if you cannot eat
One second, let me give the answer. So he said, a prominent person is different. Yes, your leniency is acceptable. It's fine, nothing wrong. But if you're going to be lenient, and you're a man of that stature, a great sage, a prominent person that's known to be very scrupulous about your Torah mitzvahs, someone else is going to be lenient in their own way. In other words, you're lowering the standard. Although technically it's okay, but you're lowering the standard, then everyone lowers their standard. So Rabbi said, I'm disappointed the way that you're doing that, because someone like you should be extra careful, because people are looking at you, and if you're lenient, they're also being lenient. With this, we conclude chapter 4. Thank you for joining. Hello, Lynn. And all those that are watching and listening. If you have any questions on the live or on the replay, put it into the chat box or the comments. We'll try to address them.